All right. I want to speak to what I think is, well, it's one of the cornerstones, one of the four most important aspects of a great relationship. And it's healing chauvinism. Now, chauvinism is much deeper than the view that men are more valuable than women or that women are more valuable than men. And in our modern world, both play that game. We have men and women, and in a majority of cases, in some areas, women competing to be better than men, feeling better than men, on the basis of competence, organization, efficiency, appearance, timeliness, results, power. These are all masculine traits. And honoring the feminine, which is the deepest wound within our culture, the dishonoring of the feminine in both men and women, goes into the heart of every moment. Let's take a look at appearance. Well, I'm feeling wonderful. I'm feeling expansive. I'm feeling boundless. It's kind of nice to have my eyes, half open and half closed. Because, well, it's one of the states that come from a great sleep, from enjoying great lovemaking, of feeling so great that one doesn't really care what one does or how one looks. And this is what I call a feminine state. So how is this moment feminine? Well, first of all, in the day and night balance, the night is more feminine than the day. So luxuriating in long and uninterrupted sleep is feminine. Not having a set time to wake up is feminine. Exploring dreams is feminine. Believing that dreams are important enough to talk about with your partner is feminine. Masculinity values lineal consciousness and lineal communication. Femininity values circular conversation, values nonlineal, intuitive communication. I had a dream that enriched my life. My wife had a dream that brought enrichment and insight to our marriage and her life and who she is. And it's a very feminine way to be, I kind of have an idea. I have an idea. Let's explore this idea that in a 10x relationship, healing chauvinism, righting the underlying imbalance, is one of the most important things in creating health, in experiencing love, in a sense of meaning and fulfillment, in a sense of grace. Grace comes with balance, the sphere. And so chauvinism at its core is the belief that to listen is less important than to talk. That to look good is more important to actually feel than to feel great. That outer appearance is more important than substance. That money is more important than joy. That to give is a symptom of power, but to receive is a symptom of weakness. It's very, very puzzlingly painful and deep. And so if we understand that all exchange, every energy in the history of human experience has its value because of its flow. You can imagine a battery that represents all energy. You can say, here's my great battery with the totality of all the energy that's ever been. You say, wow, aren't I great or lucky or whatever to have this battery? But it's not the battery. It's not having the electricity stuck in a battery that has any value. It's flowing that electricity forth. It's flowing that power out in such a way that brings light and music and warmth and food and movement and dance and invitation and company. This is where the value lies. And it's also where flowing the electricity forth creates torture, electrocution, traffic accidents, where the negative value lies. It's all in the flow. It's all in the transmutation of one form of energy into another form of energy. That's where the magic lies. Electricity comes out, moves along here, moves into a light bulb that's either too bright this early in the morning or it is heavenly to look out on a beautiful day. It's ironic in some way that many women, at least in public, have far less latitude than many men to play with appearance. But one of the things I've always looked for as an energy signature, because it's so vital, that essence of life is feminine. That essence in life is the spark, the innocence, the emotion, the feminine. The presence. The shape is the crystal. The energy, the feeling, the consciousness, the joy is feminine. The consciousness is feminine. The inner is feminine. And it goes on in these endless ripples, you see. Because, of course, every single thing that I say has a paradox. When I say the energy is feminine, the word for the energy is masculine. So when I say the word energy, I'm using a masculine structure to elicit a feeling. And then, what is that energy? And you use more words. Oh, it's there's this, bubbling brook. Ah, yes, that kind of bubbling brook. Intuitive, and yet still words, still language, still nonlinear structure. And what about this spontaneous relationship with time, right? It's 4 p.m., stayed up late meandering, meandering. And it's 4 p.m., so moving out of bed over to the camera, feminine. But talking, masculine. Having a feeling like, I really get how important feminine energy is, masculine or feminine. But then trying to put it into words in a structure that makes sense is masculine. Femininity is hurting in many of us. It's the biggest wound I've experienced as an American male. It's the cuts across the feminine psyche, the shame to the most vulnerable emotions. So to create a 10x relationship means looking at the partner on the inside and honoring that more preciously than the partner on the outside. I'm basing a general awareness that in our value hierarchy in the West, we are chauvinistic towards the masculine, rewarding the most competent sociopathic women with high ranking, often berating the most sensitive and vulnerable of men with contempt. Not contempt for the body, contempt for the femininity in that body. The innocence, the joy, the presence, the sense of openness, the responsiveness, the gullibility, the naivete. You see, these are neutral traits that are only negative in a sociopathic culture. Because when little children look into the eyes with wonder and see God and Goddess in every adult, and play and explore and wonder what will happen next. You see, in a healthy culture, in a culture that's healed its trauma and its wound, that energy becomes the springboard to an 80% increase in magic and spirituality and flow. In a culture that preys upon innocence, that clips the wings of those who can still fly. We experience the regular evisceration of our soul. And rather than turning on the culture or the perpetrators that eviscerate us and asking why? Why? Why do you do what you do? Why not join me in the dance that is so much more beautiful than the clipped satisfaction of your domination? Why not smell the fragrance? And instead celebrate. Comedians talk about killing it. I killed them. I had them in the palm of my hands. A sadomasochistic relationship between the speaker and the audience. Of shaming, of intimidation, of forced entry, of manipulation. I killed it. And that's considered a triumph over the evisceration of shame. I was incompetent. I was open. I was there. There was an awkward silence. The feminine. An awkward feminine. You entered that silence and you weren't in control. Get him off of there. One of the symbols that I've looked for all my life in another human being is the leaning instinctually to put joy and a spontaneous happiness over the question, what will people think? And I want to leave you with that. Because it can take you to very big places. What is a life based on that spontaneous happiness, that spontaneous joy? And what is a life? What is a relationship? I can't tell you how many women there was a spark there. And I followed the spark to the body. And it was the body of a 50 or 60-year-old woman. But there was more of a sense of wonder in that spark than in all of the politicking and power playing of the rough and tumble ranking protocols of the others in the room. And she looked back at me, and she may have noticed the spark, but what she said is, I'm too old for you. That spark is ageless. That love is timeless. That presence is eternal. It is the presence of soul and the spark of spirit. And it can touch gently, kindly, carefully, the skin of an 80-year-old woman, the caress of a dying monkey, the eyes of a sickly child, soon to die. That spark is there. And sometimes, near death, when one begins to imagine a world that is not based on the cult of the day, but the celebration of the eternal. Sometimes that spark is more beautiful in those moments. Sometimes on the psychedelic journey into gentler waters, those slow pathways down rivulets of an untrained mind. Because you can take that water and make electricity and funnel it into aqueducts and locks and raise boats, and these are beautiful things. But the untrained mind, when the structures are removed, when the levees are breached, the untrained mind goes places, dances into soft and sweet moments. Which brings me to the most terrifying fear of all. Alone behind the barracks of a chauvinistic, of a reductionistic, of a materialistic. Behind these punching bags and walls that knock us into the grief of half-conscious dreams. In these places, to have one scent of the goddess, one dance into seconds of timeless time, and have the bulldozer of an over-efficient, masculinized, and militarized mind eliminate all value in half of a second, push you over and out of the moment, and shame you for caring about something that should not, and for the bulldozer-like cog in a cultural wheel does not exist. How you doing, buddy? Let's get out of here. There's not much stuff going on around here. A dismissal. And in order to stay high-ranking, 98% of a population in that moment will betray that feeling, that truth, that beauty in order to look good in another person's eyes. What worlds close down and crumble? What misery erupts and foams on the surface of our lakes when we turn away from the truth, from the beauty, from the goodness of our feminine soul. Something that is not what we talk about in polite society. This would be a nice point for some cutting comedy, right? You'd win awards for cutting this to shreds. And yet, hey, Philip. Isn't this why dogs are so much more beloved. Isn't this why dogs are so much more fun to play with than another human being? Because for all their ignorance, a dog is smarter than a Western mind in putting love, play, affection, dynamic energy at all times of the day, wet or dry, combed or unbrushed. The love, the joy of a cuddly friend can make all the difference, can feed us in a way that multi-million-dollar corporate deal cannot. It's not an either or. But I want and am blessed with a woman, with another human being, who joins me in putting that joy, that spark, ahead of the terror, the mantra, and the dogma of looking good.